Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I'm going to be complaining most of the time. So watch this video if you want to hear me complain and vent, because my last video was a positive one, and this one is not going to be. Basically, I'm going to be talking about my trip to France and all the emotions and all the thoughts, memories that it caused to visit my family again and be back in my childhood home. So the first thing is that apparently my dad has been working 12-hour weeks, 12-hour days, and they live in France, which is a place that has 35-hour work weeks actually. And but my dad is very worried that he's going to lose his job. And he's always had this worry about losing his job, but now I think that it's quite certain that he's going to lose his job before he ends up in retirement. Because my dad is around 60 and like the retirement age is like 65. So I don't think that he's going to last that long. And if my dad loses his job now, he's not going to find another job. Who wants to recruit somebody who's over 60? Yeah, and my dad works in IT, so that's a business that really gets like, sent overseas, not to, my dad has known about this for a while, but so that's not great. Another thing that happened also is that my brother apparently flunked a few of his classes, and I don't know how he's going to make it next year. He also did not have a summer job or any kind of internship. I did have summer jobs while I was in university, but that's, but I didn't fail my classes either. So, also I needed to go to France to visit my family during the summers, and I couldn't so I wouldn't be paying actually rent sometimes during the summers because I was living with my parents. And now my brother is living with my parents, so he's not paying any rent. So that's great. But the state of the house is quite terrible, let's just say. And it's been terrible all the time, my parents are hoarders, so there are tons of things, just stuff that's piled from floor to ceiling, and the ceilings are very high because it's an old French apartment with very high ceilings and, like French windows, that kind of style. So it was tough being in that old apartment without any AC and without any ventilation in 35 plus degree weather. At night, the heats did not go down under 25 degrees. Sometimes it was even 30 degrees during the night. So I was pretty much having a hard time sleeping. Now, there's so much stuff that there are certain doors and certain appliances that don't work anymore because we can't access them. And so getting a person to take out the appliance and put in a new one is just something that my parents have given up on. So we don't, like, the washing machine doesn't work since several years back. The dishwasher doesn't work since several years back. The fridge doesn't work since several years back. 3 out of 4 sinks don't work or are leaking or a combination of the two. So my mom has been doing the dishes because obviously my mom is doing all the chores, right? My dad's not. She's been doing all the dishes in the bathroom sink. At least my dad has fixed the toilet and the bathtub, so there's no, there's no stuff covering it, and they are functional. However, there is mold in the bathroom, black mold on the ceiling, and that's been that way since many years, so I'm probably completely intoxicated by the mold. yeah, and now that since a few months back, the TV has broken. So, yeah, my parents are making do. They're surviving and things are going somehow. But it does stress me out to know like things are just slowly breaking down all around, and my parents are getting older, and then I'm worried that there's going to be a fire someday. That's why we didn't have a fan, because then we would have to plug it into the wall, and there's too many things near the plug, so there's a risk of fire. So, I'm worried that my mom, she has a broken back due to picking up one of my bags actually many years ago. So that, my suitcase, so that really stresses me out, and like I feel guilty still after all these years that she was picking up my bag and broke her back. But I'm worried that my mom will trip and fall in the midst of all the mess, and nobody will be able to pick her up. And she's not at that age where she's that old, but she's nearing that time, and I'm worried that we're not going to be able to save her, and that they're going to be drowning in all this stuff, because it's already hard to walk around. You need to like stop in the middle of the corridor to let somebody else pass, because there's so much stuff. The stuff is very overwhelming, and I always I need to take a few breaths when I come into my parents' house for the first time. Every time I go, there's a reason I didn't go to my parents at Christmas, because there's that situation, and then there's also the situation of my grandfather losing his memory and being extremely irritable and impossible to deal with. I think that he's kind of toned it down, so it wasn't that bad. But I did try to avoid him, because sometimes it's scary, the things that he just doesn't remember. And then he lost his keys, so my dad had to call all these different people to say that my grandfather has lost his keys, how is he going to get home, that kind of thing. And all of this culminated in what I would call the IKEA meltdown, which is basically that we went to IKEA because everybody had the same idea in my town, that let's go to IKEA because it has AC. So everybody was at IKEA, so I was already quite dysregulated by that. And also dysregulated by the fact that I'd done all this traveling, and then I'd had to sleep in all this mess and everything. And then my dad starts talking about my grandfather's house and how there are certain reparations that need to be done there. And he starts asking me for my input that I should call a plumber or research plumbers. And I'm like, I've never researched a plumber in my life, and why do you think that I should take the phone call? And also, it's not even my house, and it's not even your guys' house. Like, I care about my parents' house first. My grandfather, unfortunately, has to take a second place, He hasn't been in my life. We don't have a great relationship, but my parents, are number one. I can't, I have a much closer connection to my parents than to my grandfather. So, and my parents actually help me. My grandfather doesn't. So there is a reciprocity in this. Well, so I was like, I couldn't deal with this extra demand, and I think it's the pathological demand avoidance kind of thing. I felt this fight or flight response of no, and when I get to that point, it's like I'm a broken record, or I can't think, and I just started crying. And then I was just like, I don't live here, I don't live here. I don't live here. I don't live here. And I wasn't screaming or falling to the floor or kicking or anything, it wasn't a violent thing, but it was kind of like a short circuit of I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And I had to somehow convey this. And so I was crying, and I was like, I can't do this because I don't live here. And my mom came, and she didn't understand, because it was this conversation between me and my dad. And then she started shouting, and so that didn't help. You know, she was like, you know, what's wrong? You know, we're having a nice time in IKEA, you know, I'm like destroying it all. And yeah, I was just like trying to explain that, you know, and she's like, but your dad always makes lists of things to do. He doesn't like expect anything from you. And I'm like, yes, he does. He's asking me to do this. And she was like, well, no, don't worry. You don't need to do this. And my dad was like, but yes, she needs to be useful. And I was like, I can take care of my own stuff. Like, I can do my own chores to the best of my ability. You know, I can do my own, take care of my own clothes, my own stuff, but I cannot deal with your house anymore. You know, I can only deal with my own place up in Sweden. You know, I can only deal with my own problems. And yeah, it's like, if that makes me selfish, then so be it, because I do not have the bandwidth to do more, you know? And so in the end, you know, I ended up calming down. The day after, my mom took me to a cafe, and we sat and we talked. And she said, you know, you've become much more tolerant to stress and to all this dysregulation compared to before. She said, she said that before I would have maybe just like had a meltdown. She even used the word meltdown. She said you would have had a meltdown like within the first day of coming. And she said that, yeah, that my dad is very stressed due to his job situation and due to my grandfather losing his memory. And, you know, and I'm like, yes, he's stressed, but like, you know, and she says he likes making lists, and he's very rigid, and he's very stubborn, and he doesn't like, you know, he wants things to be practical, and he's just saying it how it is. He's not like expecting anything out of you. And I was like, yeah, but it felt like it, you know, when he's telling me all of these things. And like, ironically, she is listing a lot of autistic traits, but she doesn't believe in autism, really. or I don't know how you could state it. But yeah, so she was saying that. She was like, well, you've done a better job with like keeping the stress. She says that my dad is very good at like hiding that he's stressed out. And then it explodes in like random bursts. And she says it's good that I actually like tell people before it becomes too much. So I'm glad she told me that. I don't know if I'm like that. It's not like, that wasn't really an apology, but okay, I'll take it. And then, you know, I couldn't really talk to my dad about it. And then she said, yeah, you've also gotten a lot better with your social skills throughout time. And it's like, yeah, my mom knows me because, you know, she's known me my whole life. She was like, yeah, you'll never be a public speaker, but you have still gotten much better than before. She said that these kinds of discussions we wouldn't have been able to have beforehand. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Is that a normal thing for parents to talk to their kids about their social skills? I don't know. I don't know how it is. I just found it a little bit strange. I guess it's because my mom is used to my dad, who has like literally zero social skills. So I guess that by comparison, I'm much better at that than my dad is. But yeah. Anyway, I'm drinking one of those teas from my bag. But yeah, so it wasn't fun to have to deal with all this stuff, this dysfunction. So like I love my family. Um, you know, I managed and it was fine. I just, yeah, I needed a lot of time to recover. So I spent a lot of time on my own just listening to audiobooks pretty much during the summer. Um, and also like you couldn't really go outside unless it was in the morning or in the evening. So basically in the middle of the day I was just lying on this futon bed thing, uh, just scrolling, or not scrolling, listening to the audiobook. I only had 10 gigabytes of surf for 2 weeks, which isn't a lot if you're spending a lot of time and you want to watch videos. I didn't end up watching many videos. And so obviously I didn't upload a video during that time. But yeah, another thing is that my dad did not allow us to have Wi-Fi. We only had like the computer because apparently my brother is always on his phone. So, you know, my mom has an unlimited data program on her, you know, for her phone, but my brother has limited data. So my dad is still very much controlling of people's behaviors and, you know, of my mom and finances and stuff. I don't know. I also felt a little bit of this sense of like eldest daughter syndrome thing of like, there's so many expectations that were placed on me to be perfect, and then my brother comes along and he's allowed to just like skid along, and I'm not bitter, but it does make me sad for my younger self that I thought that I had to meet all these expectations that I couldn't meet. Maybe I would have like not had to go through burnout had I been nicer to myself. But yeah, my brother I think also has maybe some kind of depression going on. I don't know. He's very secretive in what he does, and I understand that because I understand that he's trying to escape the control that my parents have, which can be quite suffocating if you live there. That's why I left. You know, my parents are quite overprotective, but they let my brother do what he wants pretty much, and they wouldn't have let me do a fraction of what my brother gets to do. And yeah, I was very, very sheltered, like I couldn't go out to a friend's house without telling anybody. And that went on until I was 17, 18 when I left. You know, and because of the hoarder house, I couldn't invite people to my house. And, you know, I think I was also very much more of a scaredy cat. Like I didn't want change. I didn't want to go to class trips to a different country or that kind of thing. So I kind of got out of many situations, but I didn't get exposed to many situations. My brother, I think, has more of the ADHD stuff, where it's like the procrastination. He can't get himself to do anything on time and to, you know, actually sit down and focus and study. For me, I got that, but then I didn't get the like being spontaneous, doing fun things in life. So it makes me sad. It makes me sad for both of us, you know, because my parents, they don't believe in ADHD or autism, so I don't think that my brother will get any kind of diagnosis. But my brother also doesn't really believe in it all. He still believes in the HPI stuff, for those of you who are French. And it's true that my brother has a stroke of genius kind of thing that I didn't ever get. In that, you know, he doesn't need to study a lot in order to learn new things very quickly. He has that, you know, brilliance kind of thing, that brilliant mind, which I didn't get that gift. So, but I did get other gifts, I guess. It's just that, yeah, I don't know. Maybe sometimes I'm a little bit jealous of my brother. I don't know. But it makes me understand that, like, okay, I'm glad that I left my parents' house when I did. I'm glad I did what I did. I'm glad I only spent a very short amount of time with my parents. I wish it didn't have to be that way. I wish that I could stay a longer time and like be happy about it, but I really cannot. 2 weeks is my absolute maximum and I can't do more than that. I also think that my mom and I have more boundaries between ourselves now, and I think that this is good, because it used to be that she would plant me as like an intermediary between me and my brother, or me and my, like her and my brother, or her and my dad. She would have me like be the diplomat between us, and I was like, but I don't even live there. Why do you want me to talk to my brother about studying or about, something else about life? Why are you telling me what to talk about to my brother? Why are you telling me to ask my dad about something that you aren't, that he's not answering you about? Talk between yourselves. I think that she's gotten, because I've actually said, like, you can't just do that to me. And I think that she's finally understood that, I started distancing myself from my family, and talking less to them and not talking about everything that happens in my life. In the past 1 or 2 years, when I went into my meltdown, my burnout, my first big burnout, well, the biggest burnout, I realized that I got really angry at everybody when I was in that period, and the anger, I had to be careful to not like unleash it on everybody, but it gave me this kind of courage that I didn't have before, of like having to say no and having to say that this is not okay. So I'm grateful for that I was able to do that, because now my relationship to my mom and dad is much better, that I can like just like tell them to just not go into this, not involve me as much. I'm just like a satellite, I'm not there. But it still comes out sometimes in that my dad thought that I would like get myself completely involved into fixing their house, when really that is not possible for me. I'm only there 2 weeks, and sure, I'm acting a bit spoiled because, like, but I am their guest at this point. It's not like I can, it's not like it's not going to be me returning the favor in the same way, because they're the parents and I'm the kid, like, so when I come back home, yes, I'm kind of returning back to being a kid in certain ways, not 100%, but I mean, like, they shouldn't expect me to do things that should only concern them, because I'm not, I worry about them a lot, but I can't do what they won't do for themselves, I can't fix their house for them if they won't fix it for themselves, and I think that it's I've gotten a little bit closer on that path, but I'm not there yet, and that's why it really stresses me out being there. So I'm going to end this video now before it gets dark. I guess that you can barely see my face at this point. So sorry about the ranting, but that's what this video was about. So, and you clicked on it, so that's kind of on you. But tell me what you guys think. For those of you who have hoarder parents, maybe you have similar experiences, or maybe you have another relationship to your parents that you'd like to write about. I'd be happy to hear about anything. Please be kind about people who are hoarders. It's not laziness. It's not, it's not that they're deliberately being cruel or abusing. It's they don't want to live this way either. It's just that's their brain plays tricks on them. It's that's why often hoarding is coupled to OCD. It's like you get trapped in your own anxieties, your own the way that you do things is not completely inside your control. And I've grown up with this. I'm used to it. I know that other people completely freak out about it, or they think that it's like something to laugh at on TV. It's really, it's a real thing that happens to real people. And I don't think that, I can criticize them because it's my, I've lived with it, and I'm not like criticizing my parents as like they are good people. What I mean is that this problem that has been created in this situation has impacted me negatively, and it's not their fault, but I need to not make it my fault either. It's not my fault. I did not create this, and it's not my responsibility to fix it either. It's their responsibility to try to make things better, but it is very, very hard. And I don't think that they will be able to do it alone, but I don't think that they're going to get a professional either. So I have to leave them to it until I'm able to, until they let me help out in a way that will actually help, and in a way that is not going to deteriorate my mental health. So yeah, sorry I kept going on there. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.